Tell someone you own a Doberman and watch their face. That tiny pause. That small twitch in the eyebrow. Without even meaning to, their mind fills in the picture. A lean, muscular, black and tan dog with ears standing straight up, looking like it went through military training before it ever learned the word sit. And right behind that image comes the assumption. Aggressive owner. Maybe an insecure guy who needs a dog to look more dangerous than he actually is. Maybe someone who's watched too many action movies about home invasions. And in almost every single case, that assumption is completely wrong. Here's what's actually interesting and what almost nobody talks about. It's not just that the stereotype is inaccurate. It's why the stereotype exists in the first place, and what it actually reveals about the person holding the other end of that leash. Because choosing a dog is never random. It's a psychological fingerprint. And the Doberman, it turns out, attracts one of the most specific, most consistent personality types in the entire world of dog ownership. Stay until the end of this video because what we're about to unpack is going to change the way you look at that dog and that person every single time you see them together on the street. Let's start with what a Doberman actually is, not what it looks like it is. The breed was created in late 19th century Germany by a tax collector named Carl Friedrich Louis Doberman, who wanted a dog to protect him while he collected debts in dangerous neighborhoods at night. That origin story is already telling, because the original goal was never to look terrifying. The goal was intelligence, loyalty, and the ability to make independent decisions in unpredictable situations. That trait, independent judgment, stayed bred deep into the line. And as we're about to see, it's the key to understanding why certain people are pulled toward this exact dog. So here's the first myth we need to tear down immediately. People assume Dobermans are naturally aggressive. The truth is almost the exact opposite. On most behavioral evaluations, including testing from the American Temperament Test Society, Dobermans consistently score better than plenty of so-called friendly breeds, including some terriers and even a few toy breeds, when it comes to stability and the absence of unpredictable aggression. A properly socialized Doberman is, underneath that intimidating frame, an extraordinarily sensitive dog. It reads every shift in your tone of voice, every small hand movement, every subtle change in the energy of a room. It's not a biting machine. It's an emotional sensor on 4 legs. And that brings us to the first real psychological connection. People who choose a Doberman are usually not people looking for a scary dog. They're people looking for a dog that understands them without needing words. The breed is famous for something owners call the Velcro dog phenomenon, a dog that physically needs to be touching you, that sleeps leaning against your leg, that follows you from room to room, not out of insecurity, but out of a deep, almost obsessive attachment to one person or one household. If you look at who tends to seek out that kind of devotion, you often find people who are emotionally quite open, but who choose to express that openness through something that will never betray them, judge them, or walk away. A companion who never asks questions, but who notices absolutely everything. Now here's where we pause for something important, because this connection between owner and dog runs deeper than most people realize, and it's worth sitting with before we go further. If any of this is already changing how you think about a dog you thought you understood, go ahead and subscribe, because the psychology only gets more specific from here, and the next part explains something almost no one outside the breed community has ever put into words. Second myth, that Doberman owners want attention and fear from strangers on the street. The reality is often the exact opposite. Plenty of Doberman owners will tell you, if you actually ask them honestly, that they're tired. Tired of people crossing the street when they see the dog coming. Tired of parents yanking their kids' hands away on the sidewalk. Tired of explaining over and over that their dog is actually an enormous, velvet-eared baby who is terrified of the vacuum cleaner and cries at the vet. What looks from the outside like a power flex is, from the owner's side, often a source of quiet frustration. They didn't choose this dog because of how the world reacts to it. They chose it in spite of how the world reacts to it. So the real question becomes, if it's not about the fear it inspires, why the Doberman specifically? This is where we get into the deeper psychology. The Doberman is a high-intelligence, high-energy dog with a genuine need for structure. It ranks consistently among the top 5 smartest breeds in the world, right alongside the Border Collie and the Poodle. But where a Border Collie wants a job to do, a Doberman wants a relationship to build. It learns fast, but it doesn't obey simply because it was told to. It obeys because it trusts the person giving the command. That's a fundamentally different dynamic, and it's exactly what pulls in a very specific type of owner. Not someone chasing obedience for its own sake, but someone who wants to be trusted and who wants to earn that trust in return. Psychologists who study the link between owner personality and breed choice notice a recurring pattern among people drawn to working, protective breeds like the Doberman, the Rottweiler, or the Belgian Malinois. These owners frequently show high levels of what psychology calls competence motivation, a deep internal drive to be genuinely good at something difficult, to master a skill that demands patience and consistency. Training a Doberman is not trivial. It requires routine, clear boundaries, and real emotional stability from the owner, because a dog that reads every flicker of nervousness will reflect that nervousness right back at you. An inconsistent, anxious owner ends up with an inconsistent, anxious dog. A calm, dependable owner ends up with the single most loyal ally they will ever have. That's why so many professional trainers and canine behaviorists notice the same pattern again and again. People drawn to the Doberman have often, at some point in their own lives, had to rebuild themselves from scratch. Former military. People who changed careers late and had to start over. Single parents who raised kids alone. People who went through something genuinely hard and came out the other side more disciplined, not less. Not because the dog is a trophy for that struggle, but because the entire process of training a Doberman mirrors the exact kind of structure and reliability those people already built inside themselves, or are actively trying to build. And then there's a third, quieter reason, one that almost no owner says out loud. A sense of security that isn't performative at all. When you actually ask Doberman owners honestly, most of them don't talk about protection from burglars or attackers. They talk about not feeling alone. The Doberman, with its physical presence and its emotional sensitivity, creates something psychologists call ambient security, a background sense of calm that doesn't require constant conscious attention, but is simply always there. It's the same underlying mechanism that explains why people living alone, or people who've gone through loss, trauma, or a period of real instability, so often find deep comfort in the presence of a large, present dog sleeping by the bedroom door. It isn't fear of the world that draws them to the Doberman. It's the wish to have someone who will notice if the world ever changes. Now, to be fair to the other side of this story, because this isn't a video claiming every single Doberman owner is a perfectly balanced, psychologically flawless human being. There is a smaller subset of owners who do partly choose the breed for image, for the desire to be seen as someone not to mess with. That group exists, and it would be dishonest to pretend otherwise. But trainers and behaviorists consistently report that this profile is the minority, not the rule, and it tends to reveal itself fairly quickly. A Doberman acquired purely for image, without any real investment in the relationship, tends to become a genuinely difficult dog. It senses the absence of real connection, and that absence shows up as anxiety, destructive behavior, or excessive reactivity. Ironically, it's exactly these mismatched pairings, a small minority of bad dog owner fits, that end up in the news stories and keep feeding the stereotype for everyone else. Which brings us to the actual difference between the stereotype and the reality, stated as plainly as possible. The stereotype says the Doberman attracts people who want to dominate. The reality says the Doberman attracts people who want to be understood without having to explain themselves, and who are willing to put in the real, sustained effort it takes to earn that kind of relationship and keep it. There's a small, lovely detail that proves this, one almost nobody outside the Doberman community has ever heard of. The breed is known for a behavior owners call the Dobie lean, where instead of licking your face or jumping up, the dog simply presses its head gently into your neck or chest and just stays there, completely still, for as long as you'll let it. Behaviorists describe it as a form of seeking and giving physical security at the same time, a dog checking that you're really there, while also telling you that it's there too. It's hard to imagine a behavior further from the dangerous dog stereotype than an 80-pound animal that simply wants to rest its head on you and stay exactly like that. If you're wondering why this particular breed and owner story feels so relevant right now, in this specific cultural moment, the answer is fairly simple. We're living through a period where authenticity has become a genuinely rare currency, where relationships are increasingly mediated by screens and less by actual physical presence. The Doberman offers nothing mediated at all. It offers immediate, physical, constant presence, with no filter and no performance for an audience. The people choosing that kind of relationship right now, maybe more than at any point before, are looking for something real in a world that offers less and less of it by the day. So the next time you see a Doberman walking down the street, ears up, muscles visible under a short coat, expression serious, and the person walking calmly beside it, unbothered by how strangers react, understand what you're actually looking at. You're probably not looking at someone who wanted a dog to frighten the world. You're looking at someone who wanted a creature that would see them exactly as they are and never once doubt them for it. And that, in the end, says a lot more about the human need for loyalty than any stereotype ever could.